the distinct privilege of being assigned to read Sherry Turkle's book, Reclaiming Conversation, The Power of Talk in a Digital Age, which studies our relationship with technology and how our devices can prove to be a barrier for conversation. In this book, Turkle took an ethnographic study on the preference of communication through devices rather than conversation, and frankly, in my opinion, wrote a masterpiece. This book made me think. It caused me some guilt, and it forced me to look at how I can live my life more deliberately. That's kind of been my thing for a while, live life on purpose. And through this book, I've seen how personally I have allowed my devices to become a barrier for true conversation and for true focus, actually, as well. Turkle posits that our time alone is not nurtured because we typically have a device of some sort with us at all times. If I leave my house without my phone, I feel naked. I immediately go back and get my phone. Indeed, if I go from one room to the next in my own home, I feel weird and I go looking for my phone. And so in this day and age, we ward off boredom at all costs. And this is at the expense of our identity, at the expense of empathy, and at the expense of perspective. So in the second section of the book, Two Chairs, she examines the consequences of what happens when we text as opposed to talking. The most salient point that she made was describing a study that showed the empathy markers for college students are down 40%. Ironically, the individual who found this anomaly created an app to encourage empathy. Turkle also did a study on 12-year-old students who behave like 8-year-olds in that they do not understand how their actions may make other people feel. And the empathy markers did go back up during a summer camp where they were forced to engage. This made me think of how sometimes in a conversation I kind of drift off and look at my phone, or if there's a lull in conversation. And it kind of brings back to the first point where we ward off boredom at all times. And this has become such a habit that in any small moment with nothing to do, we reach for our devices. So I've been making an effort to not do that, to have friends over. Well, maybe not so much anymore with the quarantine, but if I ever have friends over, to sit and converse with them, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And share ideas and have conversation. And I've had some very meaningful conversations in the recent past. And the quality of communication, the quality of conversation does diminish when we look at our devices. So in making effort to not do that, it's another big thing. In the third section of her book, she discusses the education, work, and public spaces. And one thing that stood out to me there was that during staff meetings or whatever, people are doing other things at the same time while being at a meeting. And there were so many times working in the corporate world where I would get fed up at a meeting thinking, this could have been an email, because I would much rather read an email and respond and move on with my life. Or during the meeting itself, I'd be doing other work, I'd be sending out emails, and I'm not focused on the task, because I'm bored, and sometimes you need to allow yourself this boredom and to allow yourself to be interested in things that typically won't interest you, to allow yourself to focus outside of your device. And I found that I can get a lot more done when I put my phone away, and stick to a task. And yes, there's nothing wrong with phones, especially in these times that we're living in right now, that technology is a big way to connect, but that's not the only way to connect. And I think that that's exactly what this book brought home to me, is that we need to go back to true connection and to put technology in its place. And that place is not in the middle of conversation.